This is a story about a dream. You know, the kind of dream where you suddenly realize that you are dreaming. It was exactly that kind of dream. I was completely alone, standing on the deserted platform of a dimly lit train station. Well, this is a boring dream, I thought. And then I heard an announcement over the loudspeaker. A monotonous voice said, "The train will arrive shortly. If you get on, something very scary awaits you." Shortly after this mysterious announcement, a train approached the station. However, it wasn't a train in the usual sense of the word. It looked more like a train you would see in an amusement park, like on a roller coaster. Several men and women were sitting in the cars, their faces pale. What a strange dream, I thought. But I became curious. Would I really see something scary? What would it be? I decided to get on the train and find out. After all, what could scare me if I knew I was dreaming? I sat in the third car from the back. The air around me was unpleasantly warm. Everything seemed so real that I even began to wonder if I was really dreaming. "The train is departing," the loudspeaker announced. As the train started moving, my heart pounded with anticipation and anxiety. I couldn't wait to find out what would happen to me. Shortly after departure, the train entered a tunnel lit by eerie purple lights. "I've seen this tunnel before," I told myself. This was the tunnel in the amusement park I went to as a child. That's why I was dreaming of this strange train. I just remembered riding this train as a child. "There's nothing to be afraid of," I reassured myself. And then I heard another announcement. "Next stop, Ikezukuri. Ikezukuri is coming up." Ikezukuri? I thought. That's not a station. It's a rare Japanese dish. A skilled Japanese chef can cut and cook a fish in such a way that it's still alive when your order is brought to you. The poor fish would lie on your plate, gasping for air while you eat it. It's horrible, but in Japan, it's considered a delicacy. I was still pondering this when I heard a loud, piercing scream behind me. I turned around and saw 4 hunchbacked dwarfs dressed in rags. Upon closer inspection, I saw that the dwarfs wore monkey masks and wielded large, sharp knives. Right before my eyes, they began cutting a man into pieces. They were preparing him just like a chef prepares ikezukuri. I noticed a sickly-looking woman sitting right behind me. When the screaming started, she panicked, but only for a moment. Then she fell silent and just stared straight ahead as if nothing was happening. I was horrified by what was happening behind me and began to question again whether this was really a dream. When I looked back again, the man in the last car was gone. There were only bloodstains and chunks of red meat left. The woman behind me still stared straight ahead, her face expressionless. "Next stop, Wade Ice Cream," the voice announced. "Wade Ice Cream is coming up." This time, 2 dwarfs with monkey faces appeared. They held jagged-edged spoons in their hands. They started scooping out the eyes of the woman sitting behind me. Her face, which had previously shown no emotion, contorted in a grimace of horror from the pain. She screamed so loudly that I thought my eardrums would burst. I curled up, trembling with fear. It was time to get out of there. I couldn't take it anymore. "Wake up," I told myself. "I need to get out of here. Please wake up." Then a terrible thought struck me. Judging by the way things were going, I was next in line. "Next stop, mince meat," the announcement said. "Meat for mince meat is coming up." I felt sick. I couldn't even imagine what would happen to me. I strained with all my might, desperately trying to wake up. "Come on, wake up," I told myself. "It's just a dream. Wake up! Wake up!" Suddenly, I heard a loud metallic noise. It sounded like a grinding machine being turned on. This time, 2 dwarfs were on my lap. They held strange-looking devices that I thought looked like meat grinders. I was overcome with indescribable horror. "This is just a nightmare! Wake up! Wake up!" I closed my eyes and desperately prayed. "For God's sake, please wake up!" Brrrr! The sound was getting closer and closer. I could feel the wind from the machines on my face. I was already sure that I had no hope left. It was over. Soon it would all be over. Suddenly, everything went quiet. I woke up in bed, covered in cold sweat. Tears were streaming down my face. Somehow, I had managed to escape from my nightmare. I got out of bed and went to the kitchen where I took a sip of water and tried to calm down. It was an amazingly realistic dream, I thought. Thank God it was just a dream. The next day at school, I told all my friends about the nightmare I had had that night. I thought my friends would be horrified, but instead, they found my dream amusing. Then I thought they might be right. After all, it was just a dream. 4 years passed since then. I finished college and completely forgot about my dream. However, one evening, I was working late at the office. It had been a hectic day, and I was very tired. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes for just a moment. And at that moment, everything came back. Next stop, Wade Ice Cream. Wade Ice Cream is coming up. It was exactly the same as before. Everything came rushing back. The same two ugly dwarfs in monkey masks were gouging out the eyes of the woman with the expressionless face. This is just a dream. Wake up, wake up. I began to pray, but I couldn't wake up. This is just a dream. Wake up. Please, wake up. Next stop, mincemeat. Meat for mincemeat is coming up. No, this is too much. The sound was getting closer. This is just a dream. Wake up, please, wake up. Suddenly, everything went quiet. I had escaped again, or so I thought. But just as I was about to open my eyes, I heard a voice in my head. You escaped again, but next time we come for you, it will be your last. I opened my eyes, now fully aware that I was awake. But the voice I heard, it sounded not in a dream. I heard it here, in the real world. I'm absolutely sure of it. There can be no doubt. Why me? What did I do to deserve this? Since then, I haven't had that dream, but I know that the next time I see it, I will die. Probably something like a heart attack. Yes, in this world, everyone will decide that I had a heart attack in my sleep. But in another world, I know. They will turn me into mincemeat. In disbelief, I watched as one by one the children stopped playing and covered their eyes with their hands. Some of them stood, others squatted, but all were motionless. It was a beautiful, sunny day, but the eerie silence sent a chill down my spine. I dropped to my knees in front of the boy beside me and said, I can't see anything. Who is Hisaruki? The boy didn't answer me, so I pulled my hands away from his face. I want to know, I said firmly. Who is Hisaruki? I don't know, the boy whispered, trying again to cover his eyes with his hands. I grabbed his arm and tried to stop him. Tell me, I shouted. Who is Hisaruki? The boy stretched his palms out in front of my face with his index fingers out in front of him. Then, suddenly, he tried to jam them into my eyes. I was caught off guard, but luckily, I was able to tilt my head to the side and avoid the attack. Before I could do anything, the boy broke free of my grip and pointed his fingers toward his own eyes. I started wrestling him right on the ground, desperately trying to keep him from gouging his eyes out. Somebody help! I shouted. One by one, teachers started running out of the school. Together, we managed to wrangle the boy. He was taken to the hospital, and the doctors managed to save his sight. After that, the animal corpses on the steel spikes of the fence never appeared again. None of the kids ever mentioned Hisaruki again. Occasionally, I noticed some students covering their eyes on the school playground, but I tried to ignore it now. Every now and then, I come across lizards and insects strung on the iron fence, but I don't pay attention to them either. I don't ask the kids about Hisaruki anymore. There are some things in the world that are better not to know about. Okamuro is a spooky urban legend from Japan about a ghost that appears outside your door a week after you hear about it. Okamuro is a Japanese ghost, but no one knows exactly what he, she, or it looks like. They say it's all about the fact that when you see him, you will die. Okamuro appears to anyone who hears his name. He appears about a week after you've heard about him, when the Okamuro story is starting to be forgotten. He suddenly appears outside the door of your room and starts banging on the door and windows. No one but the person who heard the Okamuro story hears these knocks. The knocks sound like, Don, 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 Don. If this happens, you need to close your eyes tightly and not open them, all the while saying the phrase, okamuro, 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 until the ghost disappears. It may disappear in a few minutes, but sometimes it can take hours. Whatever happens, do not open your eyes until he disappears. If you have survived an encounter with okamuro, he will not appear again. So after reading this story, listen to all the knocks on your door and window. And don't forget okamuro. There is an ancient Japanese book that contains an illustration of the ghost okamuro. It says that late at night, if you hear a noise outside your house and open your front door, you will see a giant, hideous, disembodied head on your doorstep. Here is the story of one Japanese man who encountered okamuro. When I was in high school, my friends and I were interested in all things supernatural. We often bought magazines with pictures of ghosts and scary stories. We would read them and scare each other. Sometimes my friends were so scared that they didn't want to take the magazines home. They'd give them to me. After a while, I had an impressive stack of magazines in my nightstand, and I often read them before going to bed. One night I read an interesting story. It was a very short story, a little more than a paragraph, about a ghost. It said that if you read the story, you would be visited by a ghost who would knock on your door or window, and if you didn't say its name 3 times, it would burst into your room and rip your head off. I continued reading the magazine and didn't notice I was dozing off. I was almost asleep when I heard a faint knock on the window. At first I thought it was a bird pecking at the frame, but then I realized that it was late at night and there could be no birds. I looked out the window, but the curtains were drawn, so I couldn't see anything. I remembered the story I had read in the magazine. Was it really true? I tried to convince myself that my imagination was playing tricks on me, but I heard the knocking again. This time it sounded louder. Dawn, 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 dawn! I got scared and started repeating the ghost's name over and over again. Although it had been 10 years, I had memorized that name forever. Okamuro, 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 okamuro. Nothing happened. The knocking stopped and everything went quiet. After a while, I got up and went to the window to open the curtains. There was no one outside. I still don't know what it was, but after this incident, I became wary of reading cursed stories. I have a feeling they might come true. Do you like scary stories? Subscribe to our channel and give us a like so you don't miss new creepy stories. Join our community of horror lovers.